the sexy daddy. Okay. Hi, I'm Fino, and this is going to be my commentary for the first TP run under 3 hours. This run was not done by me. It was done by Rodner. I'm also live streaming it, so I'll probably upload it to YouTube afterwards. So if you're watching this now on YouTube, that's what I'm doing. If I make any kind of off or nonsensical comments, it's probably because I'm responding to somebody in chat, so just ignore that. Let's see. Yeah, let's get going. Let's start this train ride. Okay. First thing you're probably gonna notice is this is not the English version of the game. This is actually the German version, or the PAL version, and using the German language. This is gonna be done because the German version is like a little over 5 seconds faster than English. It's actually half a second slower than Japanese, but that version isn't used for another reason, which I'll get to later. Anyway, so the first trick in the run right here is called Ordon Gate Clip. He's going to go ahead and pick up this rock and use the large collision from the rock to like push him up into the gate that's normally locked. And then he's going to roll into the middle of the gate and have the gate push him out on the other side. This is going to skip the first 2 days of Ordon. And right after this trick, Runner's going to do a reset after side hopping off the bridge and voiding out. This will put him on the title screen because he starts the reset animation, the reset sequence, the same time the loading sequence happens, and it loads the title screen with giving him control. As soon as that happens, he jumps into the void to get the title screen off the screen and then saves and resets. The reason Rod wants to do this is because you want the state of the title screen, so to say, into your file, and the state of the title screen has a bunch of interesting stuff. First off, the default spawn point for the title screen takes you back to Frown, which is really good because you have to free Tallow, and then that activates a whole bunch of other sequences which you need to continue the game. But it also gives you the Ordon Sword and Shield, which you'll see is on link now. And there's also something interesting about that, but I'll get to that in a little bit later. And the third and most important thing it gives you is it tames Opponent for you. And the taming of Opponent is used in a lot of places, notably Ordon Village. Every time you enter Ordon Village, it checks the flag whether or not Opponent's been tamed, and it uses that to update the state of Ordon. So once you have Opponent tamed, you can actually get the Iron Boots. So since that's already done, because he copied the back in time file state into his file, you can actually get Iron Boots like right at the beginning of the game, which Rodner will be doing later. So right now he's just trying to get the Tallow and free him because you need it to continue the game. Yes, I will put this on YouTube. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Something coming up with Bo, but we'll get to that when we get there. Right now he's basically just doing the sequences that are needed to get to the cage and free Tallow. The gate is locked, and you have to get this key. There's no way to get to the gate that's known currently. Get through the gate. There's a couple ideas, but nothing, just a lot of close things, nothing that really works. Eisenstiefel. Yeah, you gotta love that German version. It's actually kind of a pain to roll through Faron Woods because the area is so big and has so much loaded, and it's a little laggy. While I'm on top of that, I'll talk about rolling. So in this game, when you walk before you roll, you actually get to your top speed faster. But so it's a little bit like Wind Waker. It's based highly off Wind Waker's engine, but the amount of distance you cover from doing a roll immediately from standstill beats out getting to that top speed first, so it makes sense. So there are like a couple rare instances where walking first will be faster. Like if what you need to do is a little over one roll away, then usually walking first is faster. But for most areas of the game, you would want to roll first and then walk a little bit, which there's like kind of a little bit of math that's done inside the game that if you're going so fast, it won't let you get to the top speed. So you have to actually roll and then walk a little bit and then roll again, and it will put you to the top speed. And for most areas of the games, that'll be the fastest way to move. Okay, so we just freed Tallow, and now he's got to do goats. Fun fact about this area, until you do the goats, the invisible wall that's over the fence here is just ridiculous. It's like insanely high. Just like absurd. You can actually get inside the fence, but you still can't get past this. There's like just ridiculous invisible wall. And for goats here, usually target time is between 20 and 30 seconds. That's like a good goats. Anything below 20 seconds is insanely good. But usually like sub 30 seconds is the goal. Wow, Rodner had a really good goat. And so once that's completed, that invisible wall I was talking about is gone. Yeah, I'm stall. Okay, back in time, since opponent is tamed, normally Bo is standing outside here, but the check to make Bo stand outside the house is actually talking to the Goron in Death Mountain, which obviously Rodner didn't do. But the check to unlock his house, which is really just the check to advance the state for Oron Village, is the opponent tame flag. So since the village is now in this certain state, he can just open the door, and Bo is ready to give him the Iron Boots. It's just the cutscene to regulate the text is not here. So he's just got to keep talking to him again and again and again until he does, like right up here, he'll say, "Oh, do you want me to teach you the secret," or whatever it is in English. And then you say yes, and you can wrestle him for the Iron Boots. It's kind of interesting because you can do something similar with Gorkoron, who you wrestle later, but it actually won't let you wrestle him. Rodner, he accidentally said yes to learning about it. It's funny. The German version, yeah. Okay, so Bo kind of works. I usually compare it to rock, paper, scissors. He has 3 moves. And basically one move kind of beats each other. Except not really, there's one of the moves is way better than the other. For the first time you fight him, he actually has a 4th move, which is kind of like do nothing. It's kind of like the learning phase or whatever. But basically, the sum of it is he tries to slap way more than any other move, and so just mashing A to grab is the best strategy usually. And so that wrestling's been done. The Iron Boots can be gotten. I apologize. I think there's a little bit of crackling in the video. I don't know if that's coming through or not. This video is actually re-downloaded. It's not the original copy. Okay. Rodner is going to save. There it is. Okay, I was like, I usually save right outside the house, so I'm a little worried for a minute. That save will be explained in roughly about 3 or 4 minutes. Basically, the save is only interesting because where you spawn. That's the file itself is going to be used later to do essentially a wrong warp. There's a way to break this box here, but I don't think Rodner does it. You can break the box while still on the chain, and it saves like frames, but it's kind of hard to do. So most of this is just going to be just optimized movement through the sewer. I think this will be the first time we get to see dash canceling, which I'll explain when it comes up. B attack across this gap here. Saves a little bit of time. And a lot of places with Wolf, especially when you need to jump down to an area, a B attack will be done off the ledge, just because Wolf, while he's like in the regular just hopping off, like you hold control stick and hop off a ledge, it's a really slow fall. But when you B attack, you fall faster and can hit the ground and start dashing again. And I think this will be the first dash cancel here. Basically, a dash cancel is where you dash and then immediately hit B. Yeah, there you go. And it lets you dash again immediately. It's only useful in a few select areas. Usually if you're going to jump down from a ledge, but your dash is ready just before you get to the ledge, a dash cancel will be used. It's also like, there's some Kakariko houses in Hyrule Castle where Wolf is just really slow, and it's actually faster to just cancel the dashes and do more dashes, because Wolf Link moves so slow on his own, just because he's limited by the area. Also, another thing that just happened was, with a lot of Midna jumps, when they have text before them, there's one frame between when Midna's next to Wolf Link and when Midna moves to the place you're going to jump. And if you hit A on that frame, it'll actually jump you there before she gets there. You can do it once there. You can actually do it here too. Let's see if he gets it. He missed it here, but... You can also skip that text there. It doesn't save as much time in 80% though, because you need to save in this area. Here we go. So the save here is going to be used to do back in time again, which I'll explain when it gets back around to it. Back in time is used twice in this run, both for different reasons. Another thing about Wolf dashing is, if you dash right before the end of a ledge, it'll let you dash again, just because there's kind of like this 5 to 6 frame check for the dash. Like, if your dash gets interrupted within the first 5 to 6 frames, it'll just let you dash again. It was probably put in to let you dash again if you, like, dash and bump into a wall or something. Okay, the trick coming up is going to be called Sword and Shield Skip. The trick actually is required to progress the game, even though, like, in normal circumstances you wouldn't do the trick, obviously. Because back in time advances Ordon state. You're supposed to go get Sword and Shield right now, the Ordon Sword, Ordon Shield. But those like triggers just aren't there anymore. Like, you can't like Bo and Haunch or whatever the fuck his name is won't be talking. You can't sneak up on them or anything like that. So you can't get the Ordon Shield or anything. So what he's gonna do is lure this Bublin over to this trigger. And to kind of understand this trick, you first have to understand how triggers work in this game. So there's a bunch of different types of triggers. Notably, there's one trigger that activates when Wolf Link's actor like physically touches the trigger, and then there's other triggers that just activate when Wolf Link is over the trigger. So what the goal of this trick is to bump the Bublin into the ground trigger, which is the first one in front that says, "Hey, go whack the Sword and Shield," and use him to launch over that trigger and touch the air trigger behind it, which activates in the air. Wow, that was really fast. And then that lets you get pulled into the Twilight. And so now that we're in the Twilight, we can continue on. A little bit more info about the Sword and Shield Skip though, since there's going to be a little bit of downtime here. The actual jump attack that's used is called a long jump attack, which I'll discuss a little bit more later, but it's important to note that that trick only works when you can actually target something. So in the case of the Bublin, the Bublin has to be alive when you do the second jump attack to cross over the trigger. So you really only get one shot at it, because after the first hit he dies, and once you hit him and he dies, like, you can't target him anymore. It's kind of a one-shot only trick. It sucks for speedruns because if you miss it, it's basically reset, because you have to, the only way to try it again is to reload the Bublin's health, which requires just voiding out. You have to jump off the bridge and lower them back over again. And so normally you would talk to the spirit here and get the vessel, but that gets skipped because you can actually skip clearing this twilight completely. The main reasons why you would clear this twilight is to, well, A, in normal runs you need it to turn back into human, but we're gonna get away around that. And B, it's actually, there's a check to warp the bridge later, the big bridge that's in North Faron. It's actually a check. It checks to make sure that this twilight is cleared, and also checks to make sure Force Simple is beaten before you can move it. And so if you don't clear the twilight, you can't move it. But we're also going to have a way around that too. So the main goal right now is to just get to North Faron, that we're going to do another trick called the Early Master Sword. Spoilers. Okay, this trick is going to work by abusing something called a super jump. Basically, when Midna charge targets something above her, she makes Wolfling jump immediately to it whenever it's released. And so you get underneath the Shadow Beast here, and then it shoots you up into this out of bounds area. And from here you can actually jump over to a much later part of the game, which is the Sacred Grove. And you'll notice that there's no Twilight when you go in here because there's no Twilight state for this area of the game. And so from here to Master Sword, it's basically going to just be attacking Skull Kid. This will this will be uploaded to YouTube. The longest segment of the run where nothing interesting happens. Well, I guess that would all depend on what you consider interesting. Probably, for at least me, would be Linear Twilight. It takes a really long time to just get all the bugs. There's no big difference between any of the language versions except text speed, and then the Japanese version is missing a few glitches. Which, again, I'll get to that whenever the run gets to that point. Something interesting here is you can de-attack the Skull Kid, and it'll actually drop you on the ground. You're supposed to spawn up on top. But as long as you do it right, you'll appear on the ground. Okay, for the puzzle, I think there's 4 solutions to the puzzle. 2 of them are the same speed. And it doesn't really matter. Literally, the 2 that are the same speed are just mirror solutions of each other. Like in one, like for example, Rodner did the one where you go right, down, up, 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 left, left, down, 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 right, up. The other one is literally just the mirror of that, where you go right, you go left, etc. And now we get the Master Sword, which also gives us Hero's Clothes. Just another fun fact. Actually, no. Well, it does, but the Hero's Clothes was gotten through back in time. I apologize. If you don't have Hero's Clothes at this point, though, it will give them to you. This is the part of the game, the part of the run where you go pee. Well, not really. You've about 45 seconds. I've done it before. But Gut Nacht. My German is. We'll just not say any more German. I don't have good German. Having the Master Sword this early is extremely advantageous, mostly because of warping and transforming anywhere, which is going to allow a lot of sequence breaks. So you immediately warp right back to South Ground, because you're kind of stuck here. Well, you could get back, but it'd be a much slower way. It's much faster just to warp. So the goal is to actually get to Forest Temple now that we have the Master Sword, so that we may get the most broken item in the game. But before we do that, we're actually going to save one more time, and now I'll actually explain all the saves. So you save and reload in Faron Woods because it puts you at a decent spot for reloading. Basically what needs to be done now is, before we get into Forest Temple, a certain flag needs to be set through a series of glitches that will allow basically to skip having to get the monkeys. And the actual glitch is called boss flag, or well, the flag is called boss flag. There's a couple ways you can get it, but the fastest way is to do it through back in time. So what Rodner does here is reloads his sewer save from earlier, and then does back in time again by abusing that reset load sequence. But instead of just voiding out, this time he actually jumps into the void and then starts the first debonks, and then he jumps into the void and starts the game to bring up the file menu. And now he's going to load that first file he saved, and it's going to wrong warp him into the King Bubble 1 fight. But as soon as he gets into it, he's going to reset and then skip a cutscene. And what that does is, when you skip the cutscene for King Bubble 1, it sets this thing called boss flag to like a value of like 50 or 60. And then the boss flag cats down to 0. Well, the boss flag is used for basically a whole bunch of different things. It's going to be used for all the mini bosses, and its main purpose is with mini bosses and bosses, but it's actually used for the monkeys too. And what happens is, normally you skip the cutscene, it goes up to like 50, 60, and then drains down to 0. But when you reset the game and then skip the cutscene, the reset sequence starts. But when you skip the cutscene, the boss flag starts, it goes to 60 and starts counting down, but the reset sequence cuts it off and stops it from restarting. And this boss flag carries over, it's not like part of an actual file, just it carries over the whole game. And so, once you set it in one file, you can go to another file and it's loaded. So what he does is he reloads that file, and now the boss flag is set to like 40, 50. It counts down every frame. It's not possible to know what the actual number is. It's just, the big point is it needs to be at least 5. Because it's going to be used for subtracting, it subtracts from how many monkeys you have, but you also want it to be at least 1 for when you enter mini bosses and boss rooms. It checks for the boss flag, and if it is, it kind of starts the fight already. It's a little unique for each one, and it's only going to be used one more time in Lake Bed. But the big point right now is to use it for the monkeys. And it's kind of fortunate because you would have to set it twice, but the monkeys actually only subtract 4 from it. Everything else, like mini bosses and bosses, whenever it's set to any value, it immediately sets it to 0 once the fight is triggered. This room is really annoying. Basically, you need the slingshot here, but the slingshot got skipped. So the only other option is to A, crawl up between them and hope they don't hit you, which is extremely rare, or throw both these nuts at them and knock them off that way. The only catch is it's not like the slingshot, which is guaranteed to hit them. The nuts actually can be thrown at them and then just miss and not work. And since this boss flag is stored, normally you would kill the spider so you could get on to later parts of the dungeon. But what's going to happen is, you have the one default monkey that starts, but as soon as you open this door, boss flag gets checked, and it'll say, hey, it's at least 4, and then give you all the other monkeys. And so boom, now we have 4 monkeys. And you can just jump across and get to the Gale Boomerang. And actually, that's all that's going to be done in Forest Temple. As soon as Rodner gets the Gale Boomerang, we're leaving. Wow, what? Okay, so Rodner got kind of unlucky. He hit the pole there too early. Normally you want to hit the pole so it gets like staggered or whatever while he's throwing the boomerang out, and the boomerang comes back and hits you. It hits him, I mean. But if you do it just barely too early, it won't do it, and it'll just throw the boomerang, which is what happened there. Still a good fight. Ook can hop a lot. How many times he hops is basically pure luck. I've seen him hop up to 23 times before he finally threw the boomerang, so it's pretty lucky that he got him to hop only twice both times. And now is the most broken item in the game, which you will see why very soon. There's actually a text there with Midna. It tells you about the Gilmering and all this stuff, but if you pause the game and reset, you actually don't have to view it, because it's on a timer after you grab the boomerang. So we save warp to go back to the front of the dungeon, and then roll back out. And now that we have Master Sword, we can warp back to South Faron and continue on our journey. So there's actually a trigger in getting out to Hyrule Field that checks whether or not you've beaten Forest Temple and cleared the Twilight. So if you try to go out right now, Minna's going to stop you, but this is where the boomerang comes in handy. This kind of abuses the same trick. It is the same trick as earlier when for the Sword and Shield skip. Basically, when you target something that's at a higher sort of elevation than Link, and then jump attack at it, it shoots you at it at a high speed. And the boomerang in this case can act as that target. And so that's going to be used in a lot of places. So it was used once there, it's going to be used again right up here. There's a mailman that comes, giant triggered, but it's actually an oval, and so like near the walls it's actually really thin, and you just jump right over it. Oh, another part to the long jump attack. I said it had to be a higher elevation than Link. It could also be out of bounds. As long as it's over an out of bounds area, it'll work too. So what it's going to be used here is he'll throw it, and then while it goes through the wall, jump attack at it, right over the trigger. Okay, now this Shadow Beast fight for this map warp is really interesting because it forces you to warp back and get the bridge now. But there's one frame in between the sequence of the portal forming and Midna talking to you, telling you to go back and get the bridge, where you can actually jump attack like that, and you can actually void out and avoid the trigger completely. And so the goal here is, because the warp is forced, you can't get out of it. We want to get the warp in Kakariko, and then we still have to come back and do this forced warp. It's required for a glitch later, but we want to get the warp in Kakariko and then do that. So what he does is he digs up this gold rupee here, and then rupees you haven't seen before have a text that forces you to look at the rupee and say, hey, it's fucking 10 rupees or whatever. And so what we do here is you put the rupee in the gale and put it on top of the fence, which you long jump attack to, and then normally the fence is slippery and you can't stand on it, but you use that rupee text to roll while you're on the fence, and then it slides you off on the other side. Then you navigate the outside of the fence here, and then you use the long jump attack to completely cross the gorge and land on the other side, effectively skipping the bridge. Pretty neat trick. And I mentioned that trigger has to be hit eventually because it's used for a glitch. The actual trigger for the forced map warp is gigantic. It actually expands past the gorge. You can trigger it from the other side. So what's going to happen is he's going to walk around, right there he walked around another trigger, which is, I'll explain in just a second. But you go into Kakariko and get the warp and then go back and then trigger it from the other side of the bridge. And the runaround there was actually the King Bubbling 1 trigger, which triggers the King Bubbling 1 fight. Normally it's not there, obviously, in normal play, or you would notice it. but it's here because he has the iron boots already, which is the check for it. But the trigger for actually launching the kick up in one fight is really small, so you can just walk around it. And that fight is never needed to be done. You can complete the game without it, so it's completely avoided. And so you get the warp for Kakariko's, and then you come back and walk around the trigger again. And then the gorge sort of cutscene here with the forced warp activates. And we utilize this in from a routing perspective. This is utilized to save more time, because you have to come back to South Faron at some point to get to Lake Bed. So we could actually go ahead and do that now. The force has to be escaped again. That trigger is still there, so I'll have to jump over it again. Anyway, so that force warp actually activates map warping. There's two ways of warping in TP. You hit the Z button, and then that brings up the text, and you get warped that way. But you can also bring up the map and then hit Z to turn on the warps. And until you take that force warp, that second way of warping is not available to you. So after escaping the force again, this time he actually calls Epona, and then Epona's going to be used. Remember, Epona got tamed with Back in Time, so we have her already. And this gate over here normally doesn't get unlocked until you complete the Zora Armor side quest. But there's a way to basically put Link through the gate by using Epona's Coercion. Basically, for one single frame when the gate swings, it's possible to go through the gate, but the way the gate swings is random, so you position Epona to force you through as quick as possible, and you just keep rolling into the gate until the frame where Epona pushes you and the frame when the gate will let you through match up. And that's basically the essentials of this rig. You just keep rolling, and then eventually it pushes you through. And then once you load this like kind of mid-section area, the game immediately thinks that you're on the bridge of Helia. It just warps you straight to it, like that. And then now you can get into Lake Helia. And the very first thing that's going to be done once we get into Lake Helia is get into Lake Bed Temple, because there's a glitch we can use that doesn't need the Zora Armor to get into it, but it can only be done when the water is low, and the water's low right now before we drop the Icicle and thaw the domain. But another key point about this is Lake Bed can't be completed yet because we need bombs. Absolutely need bombs to beat Lake Bed. So what's going to be done is we're going to use this glitch to get into Lake Bed, do a few things in Lake Bed, get the Aku, and then come back later by using the Aku, which lets you warp back and forth in dungeons. And this trick right here is called Pillar Clip. And this trick is like a miracle trick that just barely works. Basically, you float down, get behind this pillar, swim up, call Midna, and then you kind of rise while you're talking to Midna, and it clips you into the collision, and now you're out of bounds. And so you can get out of bounds and just barely make it into the loading zone before you drown. And then when you save warp in here and you already have the Master Sword, it's kind of a check with the game. It assumes, oh, you can't get the Master Sword till after Lake Bed, and so if you go back to Lake Bed after you have the Master Sword, Lake Bed must have already been completed. So when you save warp with the Master Sword, it actually drops you on the surface, which is really convenient because otherwise there's no way to get through that first little tunnel. Like, you don't have enough air. here we're normally you have to bomb arrow the stalactites down, or they stalagmites. I don't remember. Pretty sure they're stalactites. Anyway, you're supposed to do that, but you can actually just abuse the long jump attack once again to get through this room. Long jump attack is the most used glitch in the run. It's used extremely frequently. It's going to be used again here in this room, and then 2 rooms later it's going to be used again. This one's actually a double long jump attack. Basically you put it above the chandelier, and then above that place right there, and then chain the first one on the railing, and then the second one over here. And Rod's actually going to turn the stairs to get to the Aku. It's the fastest way to get to the Aku from entering, if you don't have any hidden skills or anything. And normally at this point, you wouldn't be able to do much else, because getting the Deku Toad, which is where the claw shot is, and you need the claw shot for a bunch of other things, is impossible because you don't have bombs. But once again, remember that boss flag is actually not 0 yet, so we're gonna abuse the boss flag once again, and this will actually set the boss flag to 0, and it'll be the last time it's used. Basically, boss flag has its own kind of unique purposes with each boss. Once again, long jump attack just to get over to Deku Toad. Skips having to turn on the gears here. But it's really interesting for Deku Toad because Deku Toad room has 2 entrances, and one is kind of like you just open the door and you see, oh, the gate's blocked, can't do anything. But with boss flag, how you're normally supposed to fight Deku Toad, you come in through the water down below, and then you look up. But with boss flag set, it assumes that you've already been in the room like that, so you just look up and the fight activates. And it warps you to the center of the room, which gets past the gate. And when you see it down here, it makes him drop faster. Also, really well timed slashes here on his tongue will let you kill him in 1 cycle before he gets up. Okay, so now that the claw shot is about to be gotten, really nothing else we can do in Lake Bed. So Rod's gonna just save warp to get back to the first room, because he's gonna need bombs there later, and then a coup out. Frames. Yeah, rolling to that chest there saves 2 frames. So just save warps, reloads from the first room, and immediately it goes out. You may have thought by now, well, if we're already in Linear Twilight, why don't we just go ahead and finish it? I actually can't. The meteor won't drop the Thaw the Domain, which is needed to complete the Twilight. Like, even though right now that warps you out right by where you get the vessel, you still can't get the vessel until the lake is completely refilled. And you can't refill the lake until you warp the meteor, and the meteor won't fall until you complete Elden Twilight. So what's going to happen now is, since we're already in the Linear area, go ahead and get all the warps that we can, and then go back to Elden and complete Elden. Was ist das? Okay, I said I would stop. Bad German, really bad German. Having Master early is abused a little here. When enemies like Bubblins touch the water, they actually die immediately. So what's going to be done here is he's going to use the human form to lure the bird down, the Kargarok, and then have the Kargarok go into the water and make the Bubblin on its back touch the water. And you're actually human right now, and you can fly through this tunnel as human. but for some reason human's position doesn't update with the bird, only Wolf's does. So it tries to constantly pull the camera back to the front of the tunnel where human Link's being at. So it's really just less of a hassle to just turn into Wolf. Actually saves time too, because you need to be a Wolf in this next area anyway. But it is possible to navigate this tunnel as human. It's just very annoying because the camera's constantly jerking back. Yeah, there is a way to navigate this tunnel out of bounds. Like, you can clip the cart rack out of bounds and do that. It saves a little bit of time. But, it's a little hard to do. It's a minuscule time save, too. It's like a couple seconds, maybe. So I was gonna get the Zora's Domain Warp and then immediately head back to Eldon. The bugs are being done sort of out of order from the traditional one. Basically, you go to the graveyard and kill that bug first, and when human side hops against that well, he actually clips straight through it. And this kind of skips having to go into Renato Sanctuary and move the statue to get down to this area. And basically it's just going to be optimized tier collecting. The tiers are gotten in a certain order that kind of eliminates backtracking. Well, sort of. Won't be anything too exciting. One of the tiers is... one of the 3 tiers, I should say, will have a glitch will involve a glitch that saves some time. I'll explain that when we get over to it. But for the most part, the inn and the store shop, not rupees, tiers will just be basic. Kill the bug, wait for it to spawn, grab the tier. Arguably one of the more boring parts of the speedrun. This bug here is a little interesting. So he actually can spawn down on the ground or down up top. It all depends on Link's position in comparison to him. If you move over into the right, he'll go up top, and if you move back into the left, he'll fall down. That bug is usually on the wall, but if you hit the wall on the way there, it'll scare him and knock him off the wall, which saves a little bit of time. There, dash cancel is done just to line the dashes up better so you don't end up walking on the roof without any speed. Another dash cancel just to line the dashes up better. This is another bug that can pop out in two places. As long as you jump attack it from far away, he'll pop down at the bottom, which is faster, kills him quicker. If you get too close to the dresser and then attack it, then he'll pop up top and have to climb up to get him. The bugs in this next area, normally they go into the house and you have to burn the house down, but you can actually turn human and long jump attack past the trigger that activates them to scurry into the house, and hit them before they even go to the house. Oh, that was interesting. And then once you hit them and kill them, the house automatically destroys itself because the check is on, like, kind of whether or not the bug's alive. So you see the house just kind of disappear like that. And then you can get the tears. So that skips having to burn down the house. This bug likes to scurry in a circle. Usually as long as you're careful, he won't do it too many times. But as long as he's scurrying in a circle, he's invincible, which is annoying. Actually don't know if that one's RNG or position-based. I'd say it's position-based. Kind of like the bug that falls down in the end. There's another, like, small time saver you can do here, which Rodner might do, called ledge canceling. Basically, if you try to climb a ledge, and then something is in your way when you try to climb, it'll pop you up immediately. It was done right there, just real quick. It's gonna be done 2 or 3 times. Mostly it'll be done climbing Snow Peak, because there's a lot of ledges that just kind of, when you climb up, if there's something there, it'll just immediately shoot you up. Because the game's trying to, it doesn't want you and another part of collision to exist in the same space. Once you load the Death Mountain area, there's kind of a timer going on. Not really a timer, well, like the cycles of the steam, I should say. And if you're extremely fast, like past pace, you can actually beat the steam here. most of the time you didn't have to wait there, but Runner was actually an entire cycle behind. If you're really quick, you'll have to wait on this theme. If you're like task quick, you can just barely beat it. You climb up on this ledge and then jump into the tier, so you can basically the tier counts as collected as soon as the tier is like in the center of the body, Wolflink's body. So if you jump into the tier and have it be like inside Wolflink right when it's able to be collected or whatever, then it'll pick it up immediately versus having to wait for the tier to swirl around and grab the container. Now that it's nice dig. Now that the Twilight's cleared, the meteor will drop and we can follow the domain. So normally you're supposed to get the vessel, but what's actually done here is you kill this bug right now because you have to wait for the tier to spawn and everything. So if you kill him right now and have to come back later, the tier will already be formed and ready to grab. Whereas if you just kill him later and you have to wait for the tier to spawn, saves like maybe a second or two, but I mean it's still time saved. Little minuscule things. It's also possible to skip this whole cutscene with Rutella talking to you, saying, "Hey, save my son," or whatever. But it's like maybe a second saved, and a lot of it depends on where the bug flies for the tier. Actually, it saves a little bit more time now because something else was found, but that was found, I think, after this run was finished, or completed. So now the domain's thawed, and you can get the vessel. And unfortunately, this is probably going to be the most boring part of the run. Basically, for the next 10 minutes, just running around, getting the bugs, killing certain shadow beasts so we can warp back later. Need to warp back here later, obviously, to get to the desert. Okay, so coming up, Rodner's going to kill the bugs in the middle of the lake here, or whatever it is. And these bugs are probably the two most annoying. And they're kind of RNG where they fly and stuff. That's not really why they're annoying. It's more because that was actually really lucky. Climbing on the lily pads here is really difficult. Like, they're really poorly designed. Like, you can just climb, you can be swimming and pushing up against them, and Wolflink just will not climb them on certain spots of the lily pad. It's very annoying. This bug here tries to dig in the ground, but you can kill him before he does so. Rodner getting a few rupees from the grass. Main goal here is to get 300 rupees because you have to fix the cannon to get the city in the sky. That howling stone there is worth noting. It'll be used later. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention, since one of the Twilights was skipped, that Twilight is actually where you get Ending Blow, which is absolutely necessary to complete the game. Like, you can't kill Ganondorf at the end without Ending Blow. But the wolf that gives you Ending Blow won't appear under Twilight, obviously, because it wants you to be human to fight the Shade or whatever his name is. So basically what's going to happen is if you don't get the golden wolves are designed to always go in a certain order, even if you get like the very last golden wolf is your first one, like it'll always give you Ending Blow for the first one. So what's going to be done is you'll actually howl at just any old stone, namely that stone that got passed before, because it's the most optimal to get routing wise, and then you can talk to the wolf and it'll just give you Ending Blow. Now this area of the game is another area that I mentioned earlier where just because Wolflink's moves so slow normally, constant dash canceling is actually faster. I don't think Rodner knew about it. It's kind of sort of new information, so I guess Rodner didn't know about it, but normally it only saves about a second or two. You would just normally just run through this and just constantly be dashing and then be attacking, dash, be attack, etc. for these bugs. You can just target and dash, and the cargo rock will automatically go to them and hit them. After Rodner finishes these last 2 bugs here, there'll only be 2 bugs left, and they're both at the beginning of the lake. So he's gonna get the fourth tier here from this set of bugs, and then crash into the wall on purpose. And then when Midna asks, he's gonna try again, just say no, and that puts Rodner out near the last 2 bugs. The big bug in the middle, and then there's 1 bug left over right here. This big bug actually has some interesting strategies. So normally after he attacks from the water, he gets up and then you have to wait for him to do that little move he just did, and then you can attack him. But you can actually stop him just as he gets out of the water and then attack him a second time. It's actually pretty hard to do, and it requires you have to be a little lucky. Let's see if Rodner gets it at all. There you go, he got it once. You do it twice, and then for the final hit on the bug, you can actually charge into him, because you have to charge his 6 legs. And then, as soon as if you line it up right, as soon as you charge into him, you can actually do sort of like a bonk, which is run and then wolf on 3 coils. But as soon as the charging animation happens, it considers the fight to be done, and it skips having to do all that. Rodner actually let it go too early and didn't get it there. But normally, as soon as you do a target, you just let it go and you run into him, and then it plays that cutscene. It saves like second and a half. Just little time savers. Now that Linear Twilight's cleared, we can get a set of bombs and complete Lake Bed. The reason we're gonna have to get the bombs from Isa. So basically there's 3 bomb bags in the game, and one is right below where he's at now, but you have to already have a set of bombs to get that bomb bag, so that bomb bag's out. And then the other 2 bomb bags are either through Isa, when you play Isa's minigame, or through buying them in Kakariko. You can't buy them in Kakariko until you beat Goron Mines, and Goron Mines gets completely skipped in this, so buying them is out as well. So the only one left is Isa. So what's going to be done is actually, it's going to be a temporary bomb bag. It's actually not going to be a permanent one. The game sort of lends you the bombs, and then you're supposed to shoot down the rocks and play Isa's game. And then after you beat her game, she's like, oh, and gives you the bomb bag. But the game devs forgot to check when you get the bombs from Isa to play the game to make sure you couldn't Aku out. And if you remember, we still have Aku stored in Lake Bed, so as soon as we hit the Aku button, it's going to take back the Lake Bed. Oh, right before we do that though, we have to howl at the stone, which is going to set up for... Howling at the stone is going to set up for ending blow later. You talk to Isa, and then kill the Shadow Beast, and that triggers letting you into her shop and getting the bomb bag. So as soon as you say yes here, you get the bombs. And then you'll notice Rodner starts dropping the bombs immediately. So we return to like bed, and now we've successfully stolen the bomb bag. But remember, it's only a temporary bomb bag, so once the save screen is entered, the bomb bag actually gets deleted right out of your inventory. So Rodner getting rid of the bombs right now actually wants water bombs. Basically the goal right now is to get the water bombs so that we can go back to Zora's Domain and get an actual bomb bag. Because we're going to need an actual bomb bag later. Okay. Go into Zora's Domain, get another bomb bag. And then, after that, you're gonna go to Snow Peak. Why? Well, you have to go to Zora's Domain, eventually, to get the Snow Peak. And since we're already doing it now, and we have all the items necessary, just go ahead and do it now. Saves time, less warps. So, has to run behind here, because there's a C transform. Now you can bomb this rock because we have water bombs. And actually, a glitch is going to be done here, where normally you can't swim with a water bomb. In fact, I think it explicitly says it in the text you can't swim with them. But you can actually do a glitch that'll let you swim with them. And if right when you start to swim with them, you try to drop the bomb, it'll shoot you to the surface of the water, like that. It's called Rocket Link. If you continue holding the bomb, but don't drop it immediately, it'll attempt to resurface you, but it won't actually resurface you. You'll stay at roughly the same position, but it'll refill your air meter, and that trick will be used to defeat Morpheus without the Zora armor. So now we have the lint bag with 9 water bombs in it, and then a permanent bag which we just got from the Goron, which has 30 regular bombs in it. However, we want water bombs because we want water bombs in the normal bag because the lint bag's going to get deleted. So over the course of the next little bit, Rodner's going to be dropping all the regular bombs in the non-temporary bag, the actual bag. Okay, now I have to explain the other glitch that just happened. Map glitch. Basically, Rodner attempted to warp, but Midna went up and went, "Hey, wait a minute, you called me," and then stopped the warp from happening. What map glitch does is, basically, Link has certain states he can be in. There's like a running state, or not that kind of state. Basically, just like, we'll say him just existing on a map is state 1, and then we'll say Link warping state is state 55. And so what the game wanted to do was, it wanted to make sure that no weird loading could happen while you were warping. So what happens is, the moment you start warping, the game immediately sets the state to 55, or, you know, whatever it is. It's 50 something, I can't remember what it is. And then Midna pops and says, "Whoa, wait a minute, you called me," and it prevents the warp from happening. So what that does is, certain loading zones just don't activate while Link's in this certain state. And this glitch is interesting because this only works in the North American and PAL versions. In the Japanese version, it actually takes like 15 frames before the state updates. So this is why the German version, or, you know, the English version or whatever, is ran, because this glitch that's being done right now, or that was just done, doesn't work in the Japanese version. The key point why the glitch is done is because you can't climb Snow Peak without the Reekfish scent, and the loading zone to push you back is still there, and that glitch lets you skip it. But it's interesting because this dig right here is the same kind of loading zone, and if you try to dig right there with map glitch active, it'll crash your game because the game just can't load the loading zone while you're in that state. So what's done is you have the stone, which does work during map glitch, and then immediately leave and reload the area, and that lets you dig in the hole. Here, just abusing the claw shot, you can claw shot the vines. Wow, you get really lucky you didn't get hit there. Okay, messenger fight here, get completely skipped. Basically, if you void out far enough down the hill, it'll put you up by Yeto. So you long jump attack far enough out to void out near Yeto, and then it just puts you up near him, which completely skips the messenger fight. Saying no to him is like a little bit faster here. I think it's like 3 text blocks shorter. Oh, another interesting thing about skipping the messenger fight here is when you complete the messenger fight, it kind of clears the fog in the area. So if you skip doing the fight completely, the fog stays. So you have to do this extremely hard snowboarding now, where you can barely see like right in front of you, and also like all the objects are removed, so there's no like rupees or anything. And there's still like collision and stuff, obviously. All the snow is there, but the rupees aren't there. Actually, I think they're like super high up in the sky or something crazy like that. This is probably the most intense part, because you have to hop over this area without being able to really see where you're going. Okay, Snow Peak. Snow Peak is like Forest Temple. Basically only going into this dungeon because we need the item in it. It's impossible to complete the game without it. If there was a way to... Basically it's needed to stun one of the final Xants. If there was a way to ever skip that, then Snow Peak would be skipped completely, and it would save like, I don't know, 10 minutes. Okay. Again, getting rid of normal bombs in the regular bag, because we need water bombs in them. Fell down. The goal here is to do a chained long jump attack. To get to the small key over here. Basically the first one is a height, and then it goes out of bounds, and that one's an out of bounds long jump attack. It's a double that lets you get over to this key. At this point you would normally just void out to get back to the door, because you need to be on this side of the dungeon. But when you lose a heart from missing that long jump attack, you can just LGA back. So you can actually clip through the floor here. It's just the geometry is weird, and if you side up at the right angle in the right spot, it'll just push you straight through the floor. And now that he has this key, you can kind of traverse the dungeon in opposite order and unlock that door from the wrong side and get into the courtyard. Normally you have to kill this freezer here with the cannon. But if you kind of side up in between him and the wall at the right angle during the invincibility frames of that recoil, it'll just push you out of bounds, and then you can open the door backwards. And that lets you get to the ball chain. Now Dark Hammer. Dark Hammer can be beaten in one cycle if you can quick spin him fast enough. Rodner uses the bombs to do a bunch of damage, and then just one quick spin. The traditional strat is to do like 5 quick spins, because he stays down forever, but since you need to get rid of bombs anyway, it kind of helps to just use the bomb to your advantage here. So finally had the ball and chain, and can go back to lake bed. The Akus don't like change or anything when you go to a different dungeon, so the Aku still thinks we're in lake bed, so we can go back to lake bed. Actually gonna go to this back room and get 100 rupees for the cannon, just because easy 100 rupees. And then save warp, and this will take us to the front of the dungeon. That actually deletes the lint bag too, but we have the permanent bag now, so it doesn't matter. Also, having the permanent bag be deleted via save warp resets your Y and X buttons back to what they were when you got the bag. So that's why he had to re-equip launch in there. And then right before he Aku's back out, he goes ahead and gets the 100 rupees in the front room too. Again, just easy 200 rupees, really quick. So now he's only, 69 rupees. 69 rupees short for fixing the cannon. So now we have all the necessary items to beat Lake Bed. We've got bombs, or we're about to have water bombs, and we have claw shot. Rodner abuses the bomb in the gale here to shoot down that stalactite and then put out the rest of the bombs in that waterfall. And then you can go up here and there's just a water bomb chest. And now that we have water bombs, can fight Morpheal because of the trick from earlier. So, if you've watched any other Zelda speedrun, you probably know about boss key skips. This one actually only has one, and it's this one right here. That's because for most dungeons, opening the door leads you to the boss zone, and that opening the door is actually tied to loading the boss. There's no loading zone behind the door or anything. But this one is unique because you open the door and then drop down into the boss. So by going out of bounds, by climbing vines and having the bomb push you through, you can get in the pillar here and then have the weird physics of the water warp you up to the loading zone. And then you just hit the loading zone. And it's kind of a miracle that this first one works, because you have to be on the ground to pull the water bomb to do the water bomb air trick. And so if you couldn't sink to the ground and make it down here, none of this would work. But it just barely gets you down there. Just barely enough to make the cutscene, and then when you skip the cutscene, it refills your air. He pulls a water bomb here right before the cutscene for Morpheal to come out starts. What this lets you do is float up during the cutscene, so you're above Morpheal, and then you can immediately drop the bomb to get a refill on air, and then swim over, and it basically gives you a free hit on Morpheal. So if you put on Iron Boots right before you grab Morpheal, you hit her 4 times and normally you have to wait for her to shake you off. But if you equip an item over the Iron Boots right after the 4th hit, it forces you off immediately and you can sink down. Which is really important because you need to hit the bottom as soon as possible to pull another bomb so that you can refill the air and swim and hit her again. So normally you would do that one more time, but as long as you get, there's kind of a little bit of luck involved. You can manipulate it now. Where you stab her 4 times, and then you can kind of check if she's going up or down. And if she's going down, you can actually force unequip it, and then re-grab her immediately and do the final blow before the arrow runs out. And that's it. That's how you fight Morpheal. That is a Rodner. drop the water bomb by somebody in chat asks, how does he get air? I don't understand. When you drop the water bomb while swimming, the game thinks you briefly resurface, but it doesn't like update your position to the surface. Unless you drop it like really quick, like before the bomb even comes out, then it'll shoot you straight to the surface, which is good and bad depending on the situation. But the game thinking you briefly resurfaced allows Link to refill his air. Also pretty interesting here, you're still not supposed to have Master Sword at this point, but you can transform and everything else. I don't think you can warp, I can't remember exactly. Basically, Midna in her 6th state has limited abilities. She can't do her Midna charge. She can't warp unless you do a specific set of events. Can still transform though, which will be useful later. Again, just standard stuff. Because you don't have the charge attack, normally the charge attack is the fastest way to kill a foe, but because Midna's sick, a double B attack is the second fastest way, which is what he's done here. This is the... oh, I was gonna say it's the only foe you get in the run, but technically the Arthur's rounds both count too. Nice. Struggling to get in that treasure chest. The struggle, yeah. Normally you have to light both webs with a torch here, but since we have Master Sword already, just run up and light the second one with Lantern. hits that bubbling into the water, and then the water kills him. You can actually skip the climbing that rope, but it's a little hard. Only save that a second. Pretty basic stuff here. Can abuse the bubblings here to jump off the ropes early. Wow, bonked. Yeah, that'll happen too. If you try to jump attack that last one too early, you'll actually run straight into the concrete or whatever. Small mistake, 10 seconds maybe. And so the goal of this area is to actually beat the wind, or be fast enough so the wind doesn't stop and then you fall down. So really good movement is key here. Because you want it to play out, so you just get on the bridge just before it falls. Oh wow, he didn't go for it. You can get on that bridge just before it falls. And then jump over there. You actually had enough time to, Rodner. You could have made it, I guess you were just playing it safe. Like, your movement was really good. Anyway, that's the end of the Desperate Hour. Unfortunately, this area has really good music. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that since we howled earlier, and Ms. Desperate drops us off right here, it's advantageous if I go ahead and get Ending Blow. So that's what's going to be done right now. Also interesting, Ending Blow always drops you out at North Faron, so even though we're in outside Castletown right now, once Ending Blow is gotten, it's going to drop us in North Faron. And it's going to be in this weird mix of states too, because the game thinks it's supposed to drop you out in the non-Twilight state, but it's still gonna, so it's gonna load like all the enemies and stuff from the non-Twilight state, but like the area will still be in Twilight. It'll be weird. It's interesting. I paused there because I just realized that stabbing Shade here instead of jump attacking him is very slightly faster. The time saves. So if you look, it's kind of like an odd state of events. Anyway, he immediately warps out. Immediately warps out and goes to Lake Helia. Now that Lake Helia's, or not, sorry, not Lake Helia. Now that Lake Bed Temple is beaten, Oru is on top of the tower and will give you the memo, and that'll let you shoot to the desert. The reason why you want to shoot to the desert is you need to get to the Mirror Chamber, and because the Mirror Chamber takes you to Palace, and clearing Palace undoes the barrier on the castle. Saves a very small amount of time to just run to the tower as Wolf, because Human Link moves so slow in this area. roll there to prevent fall damage, and then you turn into wolf. Nice. The desert area is actually so big it lags. So the first thing that's going to be done is the camera is going to be kind of pushed into the up position. You can pan the camera back and focus it down towards the ground. And that's to do just to reduce the lag. Shout out to ZFG, he's the one who realized that the area lagged a lot and wasted time. Normally you have to ride a boar through these gates, but since we have the ball and chain early, because you're not supposed to do snapping until after Arbiters, you can just whack that cooldown, and it lets you get around it, and then you can clip through this next fence. First you have to bonk, though. Not really, Rodner's just bad. In this next area, we're going to revisit the triggers I was talking about earlier, where they can be activated as long as Link is above them. For some of them, you can activate them even if Link is below them. So, map glitch is going to be done once again, and that's going to prevent loading zones, which includes the one you just came in through. And when the loading zone's not there, you can kind of just drop straight off the map. And then use a jump slash to push you forward, and you just kind of fall forward until you hit the King Bubble loading zone, which isn't affected by the map glitch, and is still there. It extends infinitely downward. It's kind of interesting because this next area that Rodner's going to go to, basically to load the like map outside Arbiter's Grounds, you can actually get to the loading area using LJAs out of bounds, but it still won't load the area outside Arbiter's Grounds because the sort of loading trigger for that area doesn't exist until you ride through these like wooden gates with the boar here. So this like section to get into Arbiter's Grounds, this section is basically unskippable. You have to do this. And now it's time for Arbiter's Grounds. This cutscene's unskippable, no way around it. There's no known way yet to get past this gate here. There is a way to skip the very first Poe here, but it's pretty hard to do. Usually it's only done in, like, as a last-ditch effort to save, like, a really bad run. And this run is by no means, like, bad. It's a pretty good run. So it's not going to be done. Basically, you can skip this Poe because the game assumes that there's no way that you could get to any other Poe without having first sniffed this Poe, so they just didn't put a check in to get this Poe for opening the gate. And you have to have the Poe sent to dig here and pull the chain. And we're still quite a few rupees short. Rod's gonna use the rest of the redeads in this. They each drop 20 rupees to get the last 49 rupees needed to fix the cannon. This next area, you're supposed to pull the chandelier back and then run under it before it falls back down. You can actually just LJ onto the chandelier where it's at right now, which will skip having to pull it back. Oh wow, I didn't think anybody else did this besides me. There's two different ways to LJ on this chandelier. Rod probably gonna grab the 20 rupees here. Nope, just gonna skip them. He'll probably pick up 4 from the stall children and then 5 for the boss key to make up. Because there's two redeads in this room and they both drop 20, which will put you 9 short. But the stall children also tend to drop ones and like 1 or 2. Yeah, picking up the money. So only 5 short now, and there's a guaranteed blue repeat later on, so that's where he'll get the money. So this is the 3rd Poe, so there's still 1 more left. Unfortunately, it's the most annoying Poe. It splits itself into 4, just like the Poes in Ocarina of Time. and then circles around you, and randomly one pose will be chosen. Before he gets over there, he has to go through a couple more rooms, though. This room actually has ghost rats, but with the right movement, you can actually completely avoid them. Like, oh, wow! I've never seen Wolflink get grabbed that late before. That's definitely a first. Yeah, it really sucks when you get grabbed, because killing them causes a lot of lag frames, which wastes time. Again, another chandelier puzzle here, which is just going to be skipped because long jump attacks are easy. Wow, nice mold worm. The luck in this run is pretty bad. Throw the ball and chain and then equip over it here to auto put it away. That way you don't have to hit A to put it away and you can just roll immediately. The lantern puzzle here is always the same. It's always the front one and the far left one. Here's Po 4. You can kind of manipulate how long until he spins quickly, but for a large majority of it, it's random. Like, you can set him to spin quickly like this, but how long they're going to actually spin takes forever. And you can't manipulate it. It's just RNG. What you can manipulate is here, how long they are going. They do a slow spin like this and then a fast spin. Unfortunately, I think Rod messed it up. Oh my god. Yeah, that was pretty bad. And then... Jesus Christ! And then, this is RNG as well. Oh my lord. Hello? Alright. That was pretty bad. Really bad luck, unfortunately. But now he has all 4 pose and can continue on. So normally, the game kind of shows you the boss key to tempt you here, even though you can't get it. But you can actually just B attack around that pole, and then that lets you get to the boss key. Normally, you have to go through the other side of the dungeon all the way until you get the spinner, and then once you have spinner, you can get to this part of the dungeon. But by doing that, that lets you skip all that. Additionally, Wolflink is sort of broken. You won't sink in the sand as Wolflink if you just keep B attacking, and that kind of lets you traverse the sinking sand. And so now, really, this is like going backwards, because you're supposed to be here after you have spinner, but you have to go back through the dungeon to get spinner. You have to kill these guys to open the gate. Just dropping bombs and they die. Using claw shot here just because it's a little bit easier than going through the sand as human. Normally, just through rolling. This mini boss is interesting. It's actually possible to skip his second phase. The trick's called Death Sword Skip, but it's very precise, and if you miss it even once, it wastes time. So it's usually not even worth going for in a run. You can kind of keep down Death Sword here. If you do it right, you can hit it with the ball and chain, and then kind of like stun lock him here with the sword until he dies. And there's a spinner. And it's actually faster to just save warp after you have a spinner to get back to the middle of the dungeon, since we already have boss key and everything. The goal now is to just get back to that main center area to get the Star-Lord. Alright, time for the boss. Stolid's first phase is pretty annoying. He'll throw up little... they're not stealth rodent, they're... Well, I guess they kind of are, whatever. Anyways, he throws up little skeleton guys. Spooky skeleton guys. And, just to try to get in your way from hitting his spine. And, first two times, not too bad. Third time, though, he puts up a set around his spine directly in order to block you. So you have to avoid all the skeletons that spawn out of the sand, and then trigger the ones around his spine, intentionally miss them, and then recoil off one in the back and go back. So we'll see how that goes. Wow, really unlucky there. That's unfortunate. There we go, that's a little bit better pattern. So you go back here and just hit any old random one, and then you can hit his spine. Stalfos, that's what I was thinking of. They're Stalfos. Couldn't think of the word. For the second part of the fight, you're supposed to ride all the way up this kind of platform thing that's about to get raised. And then you dodge the head's attacks, and then once you dodge like 4 or 5 of them, you can actually hit him and knock him down and start attacking him. But there's a certain trick you can do that skips having to ride all the way up. You can just attack him immediately. Basically, you roll forward here to get the head to initialize an attack, and then while he's in the middle of attacking, you immediately jump on the spinner track, and you can catch up to him fast enough to hit him. Like that. And then now, if you chain enough quick spins together, you can actually just go ahead and kill him before he even gets up in the first segment. And that's Stallard. Pretty good fight. A little bit of a mishap on the first phase. Nothing too bad though. Any time lost would have been from luck. Getting this heart container wastes the least amount of time. Really don't need it though, so I think Rodner just skips it. Yeah, you just hop on spinner and it shoots you out. This area of the game is actually one of the only areas in the game where riding the spinner is actually fast, even without like any assistance from rails or anything. We're going to trigger the mirror chamber warp. Obviously we don't have the mirror pieces, so we can't actually go into Palace of Twilight yet. But we'll be doing something interesting. You probably remember we didn't go and finish Snow Peak, so we don't have that mirror piece yet. And we haven't been to Temple of Time yet, so we don't have that mirror piece yet. And you get 1 mirror piece from raising this mirror. So that's 3 mirror pieces, and all 3 of those are not even going to be gotten. Because, once again, the devs were lazy, and you actually don't need them. In fact, you're not supposed to even be able to warp right now, but if you zoom the map all the way in, for some reason, and then turn on map warping, it just works. So, you just get that warp and then warp away. And now we're going to go fix the cannon. Although, normally, you're not supposed to be able to fix the cannon at this point. Because there's a big statue in the way, and you're supposed to beat Temple of Time, which triggers Ilia's memory quest when you have the Dominion Rod already, and then by doing Ilia's memory quest you get the Skybook letters, and that activates the rod again. Or, actually, talking to Shad activates the rod again, and then you get the Skybook letters, and that moves the statue, brings the statue to life, and you can move it. But all that can be skipped by just going up to this, transforming at the right spot, and then running right through it. And then here you can actually warp the Sky Cannon away. Although you can't actually hit warp to do it because the game thinks Shad is here for some reason still. So what you do is while Min is still above the cannon, you abuse that what I just mentioned where you can pull up the map and zoom all the way in and turn on warping, and it just warps the cannon. It just works. So now the cannon is in Aquilia. And if anybody's thinking, well, why don't we just warp the cannon right from the beginning of the game when we get to Kakariko? Wouldn't that save a lot of time? Well, before the Twilight here is cleared, you can't talk to Fuhr as a human. And even after the Twilight is cleared here, Fuhr won't fix the cannon until after you've shown him Moore's memo. He just won't even realize it's there. Which, at that point, it's faster to just do the cannon after you have the warp to whatever, to the mirror chamber. So yes, you can warp this, you can warp the cannon as early as, like, Kakariko Twilight. But you can't fix it until really about this time, at this point in the game. You have to have already beaten Lake Bed before you can fix it. Because you have to show him Warsman mode. You can't show him Warsman mode till you beat Lake Bed. So now the cannon's been fixed, and we can get the city in the sky. City Sky, personally my favorite dungeon in this speedrun. Just because of all the long jump attacks. Basically the whole dungeon is sitting above a void in all the rooms, so long jump attack is used a lot. Let's see, there's two types of wind luck. Hey, Rodner got the good one. Basically, the wind can start blowing you away as soon as you get out of the pool there. Here will be the first long jump attack. Supposed to use the Akus that cross these gaps, but Aku is slow. Okay. Here a really interesting glitch is going to be done. He's going to climb up his wolf, get up to this door, and just barely inch towards the door, and then open the door. And what that does is, by default, the big fan in this room that blocks you from getting to the boss key is off. It's off by default. As soon as there's a trigger in front of that door, and as soon as you touch that trigger, it turns the fan on. Now, what happens is, it's not supposed to be possible as Human Link to open that door without touching the trigger. But what the game considers Wolf Link as touching a trigger is when his back leg touches the trigger. So what happens is, what the oversight is you can actually edge forward to the point where it'll give you the open prompt to open the door before Wolf Link's back leg has touched the trigger to turn on the fan. And then once you've started opening the door, all the triggers in the room you're currently in just unload immediately. So what it lets you do is just you skip that trigger entirely, and so the fan never gets turned on, and it allows you to skip like 3 rooms and save a bunch of time. You won't see it till after double claw shots, but basically it allows a giant. You have to go through this huge workaround just to get up above the fan to turn it off, and now you don't even have to turn it off. So when you open that small key chest, it actually puts your save point there, and the reason it does that is because it wants you to view this cutscene here of Argrak destroying the bridge. You can actually skip that cutscene by doing that little hop around. And so what that does is, because you don't ever view that cutscene, your save point in the dungeon never gets updated back to the front of the dungeon. So anytime you save warp now, it's just going to take you back to the small key chest, which is going to be used later to get back over to the side of the dungeon really quickly. supposed to go solve a little puzzle to get through the fan here, but again, just using long jump attacks to skip stuff. Also, again, another puzzle in this room with a fan, long jump attack. Solves all your problems. Long jump attack, long jump attack, long jump attack. Hey, guess what he's gonna do now? Long jump attack. He waits a minute here because the fan is on a weird cycle. If you jump off with the Aku immediately, you'll actually miss the wind completely. In this room, he's gonna do a trick called a Aku jump. Basically, there's a puzzle you're supposed to solve to get like a really high wind, so you can like get to this little hole over here. But by jumping off this ledge right here at a very specific angle, you can actually get enough height to get up and grab this sledge. It just skips having an activated fan, essentially. Fastest way to get down there is just jump all the way down. Now you have to put on iron boots to stop this fan from spinning so you can get down to it. There's actually one frame where you can drop straight through the fan. Rodner didn't get it here. But if you get it, it saves like 1 second. But it just drops you straight into the fight. Now, Rodner's going to do a setup in this fight to actually skip the fight entirely. Normally you complete the fight to get through the gate here, but there's like one pixel where you can actually shoot. Wow, that was really quick. You can actually just shoot and grab the target and skip the gate, and then get the double claw shots. And then once you have double claw shots, you can just, say, reset the game to get back to the other side of the dungeon. Once, don't have to worry about the Argrot cutscene being here anymore. It's actually only activated by having a small key. So once you use that small key, the cutscene's gone. nice like roll. So this is where you'll see him get the boss key. So normally this fan is spinning, and it's not spinning because of the glitch I mentioned earlier. And you can just claw shot straight up, and the boss key's actually in that room he was just in, but you have to go out to this area to get up to the actual part with the boss key, which is up there. And then you go over here. Just skips a couple of rooms, or skips a room. So now he's up top and can just roll over and grab the boss key. So the fans aren't activated because that little lever was never pulled to activate them, but don't even need to activate them because you can actually just get on top of the second fan here and then do a double long jump attack. And that's it. Skips that. And then this is the final room before the boss. Nothing too special about this room, it's really just making the fan cycles. Gotta be pretty quick to make the fan cycles. There's actually a way to skip shooting the switch in this room to activate the last fan, but it's like another pixel perfect trick, and it also has to be done while on top of the moving fan. Really hard trick, most people don't do it. It does save a lot of time though. There's really no consistent way to do it though, so most people either don't know about it or just don't do it. Puts on iron boots for the fall there, so you hit the ground sooner. If you get into the position right here, there's actually like a really precise shot you can do. That'll take you all the way up to the top of the vines. There it is. Skips having to climb all that. Argrok has two phases. His first phase is split into two parts. Normally you are going to drag him to the ground, and then he flies off and you have to wait. And then you drag him to the ground again, and that triggers the second phase. But there's actually a way to skip the wait in between that. Which you'll see here in a minute. It's really easy to do. Basically right after he crashes to the ground like that, if you quickly aim and grab a pillar, it'll let you re-grab him again. And then you can bring him down. And then this is usually the bathroom break point of the run, because this cutscene is really long and unskippable. Okay, so immediately Rodner takes off the iron boots and jumps off the ledge. And this is done to reload the area, and it puts Argrok back at the top of the stage. So he'll attack you quicker. Saves like 2 seconds. You can actually sink low enough down with the iron boots here to make Argrok think he fell, and it'll stop him from breathing fire. And then you can just keep continuing on and grab him. Saves you 3 seconds. You can do it on all 3 of the phases. That was interesting. Rodner messed up a little bit there. This is the final turn or whatever. And on this one, Argot kind of tries to trick you by breathing fire twice. But you can kind of lead him into it and do the same trick. So right here he tries to turn around and start breathing fire the other way. But if you sink low enough, he'll stop breathing fire anyway, and then you can just grab him. And getting this mirror shard makes the game think you have all four, because it only checks for, of course, the City in the Sky one. It doesn't actually check for all of them, because game developers are lazy. Get the heart here because Palace of Twilight has a lot of damage in it. So it's gonna take the exit cannon. Actually puts on the iron boots first, because when you fall here with iron boots, if you jump slash immediately, you lose enough horizontal distance that you can actually land on the bridge and instead of in the water. It does 2 hearts of damage, but it lets you warp immediately. Saves quite a lot of time, because you can't warp in the water, you would have to swim all the way out. Come back to the mirror chamber. The mirror isn't even raised, but as soon as you get close enough, it sees you have the 4th mirror shard, and then all of a sudden, magically, the mirror is raised, and you can go into Palace of Twilight. You actually double, when you B-attack the Sandheads here, it double hits them, if you do it the right way. It's the fastest way of killing them as wolf. Puts on iron boots there just so he can hit the ground as fast as possible to transform back into wolf. Because you have to be wolf in this next turn anyway. Touching this black fog auto turns you into wolf. So just being wolf already skips amendment text here. It's funny, this chest is actually low enough to the ground that you can actually pull out the sword and then side up onto the chest and you just jump slash up. It skips having a claw shot. Again, just more very minor time saves. In fact, this dungeon's full of a ton of minor time saves. I'll try to mention the ones that I see and remember. This fight is really interesting. Once you do enough damage to Hologram's Ant, basically he starts this infinite warping thing, or it's not infinite, but he warps like 8 or 9 times and it's random. Lots of RNG, but if you do just enough damage to him, he'll actually warp and then just reappear and try to attack you again. So knowing this, you can just keep doing just enough damage to him to keep him from doing the like multi-warping sequence, and then just kill him. So it cuts out a lot of RNG in the run. And it's also quick. The true fastest strat on him is when you deal enough damage to him, there's one frame where he tries to warp away. If you hit him on that frame, it'll let you start attacking him again, and you can just sit there and just hit him again and again in the same spot until he dies. Again, saves a lot of time, but also involves doing 3 frame perfect tricks, so... have to get the souls to power up the Master Sword. There's a giant black like shadow fog curtain that blocks continuing on this dungeon until you have both the souls. Even if you could somehow get past the curtain, behind that curtain is another invisible wall that doesn't disappear until you have both souls. You can't get past that invisible wall, so grabbing both souls is absolutely required. There's actually a little shadow beast that drop here, but by like doing that sort of slide, you can actually slide over the trigger. They won't trigger unless the soul's in your hands, so you can sort of get past them that way. It's interesting. You cannot get past the curtain with an LJA. If you try to LJA past the curtain before you have the powered up Master Sword, you will just recoil. If you already have the powered up Master Sword and try to LJA past the curtain, it'll let you because the invisible wall is not there anymore. This room is probably one of the hardest rooms in the run, simply because the platforms are moving, and where the Xanhead spawn is random. And if he spawns in the back, luckily he didn't spawn in the back on this one, but when he spawns in the back you have to be extremely quick to hit him before he despawns. If you try to LJ past the curtain with the sword, you can get by the curtain. Like the LJ makes it easy. It's just it doesn't work when there's an invisible wall there. The invisible wall pushes you, and you way out. Oh, interesting. Wow, it happened twice. The Xant heads here are killed in a certain fashion so that you can make so you can grab that claw shot target before this cutscene plays. Here, it's very slightly faster to LJ over than it is to jump down and then claw shot up. Mind your time saves. Again, this hologram giant fight is going to be the exact same as the other one, just doing barely enough damage so he doesn't zip away and start doing his warping thing. Nothing special up until Light Sword, just carrying this all back. Okay, second half of the dungeon. Kind of blind throwing these. Good throws though. It raises the stairs. Go up here to activate this platform. About halfway through the platform ride, the LJ over just because it's faster than way down the LJ. Also, you can, that heart's consistent, you can always grab that heart if you're low on health. You actually do something interesting to the platforms here. If you do that and then immediately jump off the platforms, normally what happens is if you activate the saws around the platform and then roll off the platform disappears. But if you activate them and then hop off before the platform even activates the first time, it just stays activated until you get on it. And then again, this is just LJing over to skip the second half of the platform ride. Little 1-2 second time saver. Nice, and killed the geese in the middle too. The swag kill. So there's kind of two different ways you can do this room. Two different orders, rather. Wow. Okay. Basically, you have to kill all the Xant heads to activate the small key, and then you have to clutch out up here and get this boss key. Well, if you do the Xant head stuff first, you can actually make it so when you jump down right here, you can kill the Xant heads, and it saves like 2 seconds over doing it this way. But it's also a little bit risky too, because if you're low health, you can get hit out of the fall down, and that does a bunch of damage. Also, you have to fall right here too, the void out, to get back to the front, which also costs heart. So basically, doing the fastest way costs a minimum of 2 hearts, plus any extra damage you get from RNG. So it's a little risky, and it also does a lot of damage. So sometimes it's not worth the trade-off just for the couple seconds. Now the Xant head spawn and you kill him. You also have to wait on this route. The other one you do not. Again, faster but a little bit more risky. So this room is basically on a cycle timer, kind of like the steam from earlier. Basically, you want to get to the top of the room as absolutely fast as possible to make the elevator, or moving platform, whatever you want to call it. So you want to jump to this platform as soon as possible, then LJ over to this one just as fast as you can to activate it. And then you have to wait and grab that as soon as you can. Drop down, hope that Baba doesn't hit you, get onto this one, activate it. And then you want to long jump attack over here. So it just barely makes it. Then this guy has to be killed, kill him, go up, grab that, and then drop, jump slash, and barely make the platform before it falls, before it goes away. And that skips having to wait. Another long jump attack. Just a skip right in the platform. And then one final room before the Xant boss. You can actually skip killing this first Shadow Beast here, but if you do that, he still spawns in this kind of like chain of Shadow Beasts, so it doesn't save any time. This is just, the Shadow Beasts always drop at the same place, so it's pretty easy to predict who they're going to be. That's interesting, I didn't know you could grab the fairy through the wall. Usually want to be at full health going into the Zant fight. Not because the bite is hard, but because the hard container after the fight is placed really far away, and so it wastes a lot of time to grab it, so it gets skipped. The Zant fight has a lot of small, little, interesting time sabers in it. Xanto! German version. So he always spawns in the same spot right here, so you can actually just throw it, and then he'll get hit right when he spawns. And also, with Zant, only the 4th hit in a combo really matters. So if you, for example, while he's jumping on the water there, you can actually start swinging before he even lands, and as long as the 4th combo hit hits him, it'll count as like a hit or whatever. And right here, if you attack him at the right time, which Rodner got, you can actually lock him in place. And that skips him having 2 phases on, or having like 2 cycles or whatever on that phase. Now for this one. This fight is the reason why we had to get the permanent bag, because when you beat Lake Bed, it automatically goes to the saving sequence, which deletes the Flint bag. So you hit him there, and then immediately pull out a water bomb and drop it, which refills your air. And how the game decides which Zant head to put him in is it just picks whichever one's furthest away from Link. So by intentionally staying away from one, you can just kind of pick which one he's going to be in. This Zant phase is the reason why the ball chain has to be gotten, because it's impossible to stun him on this phase without the ball chain. If you could somehow stun him or skip the fight completely, then you wouldn't have to go to Snow Peak at all. Again, only 4th hit really matters on this one. That's it. This is a good fight, really good fight. Good luck on all the luck-based ones. Got all the 1 cycles and all that nonsense. And that was basically the last dungeon. Well, technically there's one more dungeon, but the last main dungeon. can turn into wolf here because it's faster to exit than human as wolf. And also you have to be wolf to when you transform and warp anyway, so it saves a minute amount of time. Has to zoom all the way in to activate warps, because without raising the mirror, that text for Midna, whenever you bring up the map to warp, Midna's gonna say, "Oh, the mirror is so close." Until you raise the mirror, that text stays there forever. So every time, once you warp away from it, and that raising the mirror sequence is gone, you have to zoom all the way into warp every time now. There's a postman here. Just throwing it over the railing gets you out of bounds. Gets it out of bounds. Let's just skip the postman. This run was postless. And now time for the long, unskippable cutscene of Midna breaking the barrier. We are a squid, we're not a kid. Okay, time for the final dungeon. The true final dungeon. So there are 3 barriers in this dungeon. They are all skippable. Unfortunately, skipping the very first one is very, very hard without a hidden skill. So it's just not done. Instead, since we have extra bombs, just pull out a bomb and then it kills everyone. This next barrier is skippable just by skipping the cutscene and then rolling away from it. Really good job there, Debs. Can't do that on the first one, unfortunately, because it's the first time you do the cutscene of it being formed, so it makes it unskippable. Team Bubbling fight here is basically just quick spins. You can't kill him as fast as you do earlier because he has more health and attacks you after a certain while. There's like a stupid 3-second time save here that you can get In between this cutscene of King Belvin riding off and Midna talking to you, saying, "Oh, he can talk," or "he spoke," or whatever she says. There's one frame where you can do something. So Midna's trigger here is really big. You can't escape it. But what you can do is you can backflip in that one frame and then pause the game and reset. Rodner didn't get it here, but if you pause the game and then save and reset, it saves time from going back to the front of that engine. If you don't get it, it's not faster to reset, it's faster to just roll back. Very small time save, but... Final barriers in here. This barrier you can skip the area, but you walk into it basically too soon. What you have to do is jump attack into the barrier, so the cutscene doesn't pull you in immediately because it's still in the jump attack animation, and then you skip it and let you get out of it. I think he's going to use Ball and Chain here, just to speed up the fight a little bit. Yeah. Pretty new and interesting strat. Rodner's lining up the boomerang to throw it there. That way when this cutscene ends, he just has to mash the X button and it'll throw it and put out the torch. And then while it goes over there, he just runs over here and the platform lifts up. Equips bombs and lantern. Lantern's needed in this next room to solve this puzzle to unlock the door. Bombs will be used in the room after it to kill the Dinolphus. Yeah, he did almost miss that, yeah. It was pretty close to not hitting the torch. It did though, which is good. That Dinolphus. Not Dinolphus, sorry. That Aerialphus. Just a simple fight, stabbing him. He actually has less health than the one in City in the Sky. The one in City in the Sky has effectively double his health. Same with the Dark Nuts. Although it's not shown in this run, the one in Temple of Time has more health than the ones in Harrow Castle. Here we get to see all the people that we never met help us. Normally you're supposed to follow the statues there, or the ghosts rather. They point the way to get over the falling blocks. But the blocks fall so slow you can just roll right over them and be fine. Here again, ball and chain will be used to speed up the fight just a little bit. Time for Puppet Zelda. Okay, here's how Puppet Zelda works. Basically, the best fight you can get is no Triforce attacks, and all 3 balls are done within the first 7 rounds. Basically, it's all RNG. The fight is considered over once you've hit her reflected back the ball 3 times. But whether or not she'll throw the ball on the first round, or the second round, or the third round, all RNG. And so she has 3 attacks. She has the ball, she has the little forward dash stab there, and she has the one where she does this Triforce attack on the ground. The Triforce attack on the ground takes the longest, has the longest cooldown as well, between each round or whatever. The dash attack you can hit with your shield and immediately goes out of it and she goes into her next one. And then the ball is the ball. So this fight wasn't perfect, but you also can't get 3 balls all the way in a row. There has to be at least 1 break in between the balls after you've reflected them. You can get 3 in a row if you don't reflect them and they hit you. But in between the first and the second ball there has to be at least 1 break. And in between the second and the third ball there has to be 3 breaks. Thus, the fastest you can have is 137. And so what happened there was, he got a ball, he got a dash, he got a ball, he got 2 Triforce attacks, he got another dash, and then if he gets a ball right here, it will have been an almost perfect fight, which he did. So it was the minimum amount of rounds or cycles, or whatever you want to call it, but 2 of the attacks were the Triforce attacks, so it wasn't the perfect fight, but it was a pretty good fight. I've seen it go as high as taking 15 rounds, which wastes almost 2 minutes, so right at the end you can lose like 2 minutes. Here you attack B-Scan in a specific way to deal the maximum amount of damage for the first and second round. On the third round, he will have had so much damage done to him, he'll skip his warping and just go immediately into trying to attack you, which saves time. For the final round or whatever, you have to be a wolf to grab B-Scannon. You cannot grab him as human. You saw that Rodner threw the ball and chain and knocked him down. That won't work on the third round. He'll dodge the ball and chain. And at that point he's had so much damage done to him, just a normal jump attack kills him. horseback gaining, you can ride right by him right at the beginning and make him swing his sword, but it won't hit you off. And at that point, he'll try to run away, and you can just target and immediately start shooting the light arrows at him. And you kind of want to keep a little bit of distance here, because if you're right up on him, he'll almost always try to juke and turn a different way. So the goal is to try and point the light arrows. Sometimes you just miss. The goal is to try and point the light arrow at him, and hit him before he like jukes or whatever and turns a different way. Essentially to stun him. That was a pretty good fight. One missed arrow, but it was a quick recovery. Getting hit off is the worst. It takes forever to get back on opponent when you get hit off, so definitely not a bad fight. It's highly RNG based too, because sometimes he'll just turn for no reason. It's really annoying. And now, this is the final fight. It's notoriously known as the 12-second fight, because if you do it right, it's over in 12 seconds. Basically the goal is to deal enough damage to Ganondorf to knock him down, and once you knock him down 3 times, you can do the ending blow and the run is over. But what they forgot to check for was to make sure that if you deal massive damage really quickly, then it'll just knock him down. So if you do a jump slash and then chain it to a quick spin really quickly, it'll just knock him down. So what you can do is get behind him and he'll try to kick you, and then his hitbox is open and you can just do it again, and then roll right behind him and he'll kick and do it again. And that's it. And that's the end of the run. That was the first sub 3 Twilight Princess run. If you watch this live on Twitch, thank you for watching and staying through my bad commentary. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, thank you for staying and watching through my bad commentary. I don't do this very often just because it's pretty exhausting to talk for 3 hours. But I figured this was a special occasion since sub 3 has been a long sought after goal for many of us. And yeah, congrats to Rodner for being this first to sub 3. Yeah. I'm not gonna let the credits roll, because I've seen them and everybody else has seen them so much. I'm sure at some point the actual Raw World Record video will be uploaded. But yeah, until then, thanks for watching.